So, hey everybody, hope everyone's doing well. This is Anish back at you. So, today I just wanted to talk about what I do as my main occupation. So, I am a cloud coach at Amazon Web Services and I teach AWS services, specifically developing on AWS to net new learners, and sometimes also for commercial customers of AWS. So, one of the things I get asked the most, or one of the things I always prefer, is when you're given a choice between serverless services and containers and just monolithic EC2 instances or a fleet of EC2 instances fronted by a load balancer with auto scaling, which one do I choose? That's always that big question, right? And all of this from a point of compute. So serverless, it's going to be Lambda. Containers is going to be just build your Docker containers and use ECS or EKS for orchestration. And finally, you could also build an application that runs on an EC2 instance. So my go-to always, if I can get past the requirement of Lambda to have a minimum of or a maximum of 15-minute runtime and 10 gig memory, then I always choose serverless for my applications. If you have been watching my 7 app 7 week challenge in my channel, you'll see that I always prefer serverless. And when I say serverless, I mean Lambda for compute, DynamoDB for my database, fronted by API gateway to expose my APIs to the client. And if I'm building a LLM or a foundation model based application, I use Bedrock. Now, why do I always choose this? Mostly from the perspective of cost. Initially, when you're developing, I mostly specialize in building MVPs. So initially, while developing, there is not going to be too much traffic to your application, but you want to develop a proof of concept where you show that you're building applications that are scalable, highly available, secure, all of that. By the way, for security, I use Cognito, which is also serverless. So why do I again do this is from a cost perspective, you're only going to be charged when you're going to be using that API, or meaning when you're going to make an API request, that's the only place where you're going to be charged. With everything else, like if you take EC2 instances, whether or not you're going to be making a request to your application, EC2 typically, which is in on-demand mode, will always charge you. It's always going to be charging you. And so that is one of the major reasons for all my development. I definitely choose serverless architectures. Now, somewhere in between is going to be the container-based architectures. And if you decide to deploy on AWS, you'll probably end up using Elastic Container Service or Elastic Kubernetes Service. But those are both managed services. What that means is initially you have a certain level of control on what kind of VPCs, what's the maximum number of nodes that you want to create. All of that, you have some control on that. But once you create them, ECS and EKS are going to manage them. Those clusters are fully going to be managed. So if you want to stop an application, you have to basically delete the entire cluster or stop the cluster. And so that again can lead to a lot of bills, because if you forget to do it, then you're going to be charged money all the time. And so this is one of the things I wanted to summarize, that if you have an opportunity to use serverless architectures, definitely prefer serverless architectures over container based or EC2 based architectures. There are some downsides. For example, there's always a cold start problem. However, it can be come across with a new service called Snapstart. I believe it even supports Python now. And the idea behind Snapstart is anytime you have not used your service for a long time, when a user comes and uses the service, there is going to be a delay, because all the back-end infrastructure has to get initiated and then it has to serve, right? Because that's the whole idea behind serverless. You don't manage any infrastructure. So again, there are some problems with serverless, but overall, when you're developing initially and you're doing a proof of concept to also showcase a scalable, highly available and secure architecture, please think of what I just mentioned, which is API gateway to Lambda to DynamoDB to Bedrock and security with Cognito. So in my week 3 and week 4 applications, I focused on talking about all these different applications. So do check it out if you have a chance, and do comment and let me know what are all the other architectures you use. Why do you think serverless is not great? And I'd love to hear from all of you. With that, have a good rest of your day, everyone, and I'll see you soon.